So you finally hit Diamond in Marvel Rivals competitive mode. Congrats. But now, things get a little more intense because you'll start seeing the hero ban system popping up in your matches. Basically, if everyone in the lobby is Diamond or higher, some heroes get banned before the fight even begins. It can feel a bit overwhelming at first, especially when you're not sure which heroes are the real threats worth banning. That's exactly why we put together this list of the best heroes to ban in competitive play. While the meta always shifts with new seasons and updates, these picks consistently cause the biggest headaches for your team if they slip through. So stick around, because knowing who to ban could be the difference between clutching that win or getting absolutely wrecked. I'm quickly moving on to the video.
Very small portion of the audience is subscribed to the channel.
If you enjoy these types of list videos,
please don't forget to subscribe if you like these types of videos.
Enjoy watching.
Thanks.
Alright, let's talk about Luna Snow, one of those heroes in Marvel Rivals who can really shake things up in competitive play. She plays the role of a strategist, which means she's all about supporting her team and controlling the flow of the battle from behind the scenes. But here's the kicker. Her ultimate ability is insanely powerful. It's not just any support ultimate, it can completely counter a bunch of other abilities and ultimates, making her a total headache to face. Imagine trying to pull off your big move, only to have Luna's ultimate shut it down. Frustrating, right? Now, don't get me wrong, Luna's ultimate isn't unbeatable. There are a few heroes like Magneto and Iron Man whose abilities can counter hers effectively. So if you're lucky enough to have those guys on your team, you might not need to worry about banning Luna. But here's the deal. If you don't have those counters handy, banning Luna is honestly one of the smartest moves you can make in higher level matches. Taking her support ultimate off the board means your team can go all in without that looming threat of a total counter. At the end of the day, banning Luna Snow isn't just about removing any random hero, it's about removing a very specific kind of threat, one that can flip the tide of the game in an instant. If you want to keep your competitive matches smoother and avoid those moments of, ugh, not again, putting Luna on the ban list is a solid strategy. So yeah, next time you hit Diamond or above, remember, watch out for that ultimate. Or better yet, just ban Luna and breathe a little easier. Let's dive into why Wolverine is often a prime candidate for banning in Marvel Rivals, especially when you're climbing those lower diamond ranks. Wolverine plays the role of a duelist, which basically means he thrives on getting up close and personal, tearing through the enemy backline with aggressive flanking maneuvers. The problem is, a lot of strategists and backline heroes just aren't fully prepared to deal with his relentless pressure. When a Wolverine player really goes all in, it can completely change the course of the match in their favor. One of the sneaky things about facing Wolverine is how he forces your team to adapt, sometimes in ways you don't want to. For example, if Wolverine is wreaking havoc on your backline, you might find your vanguard swapping out key heroes like Doctor Strange just to deal with him. That shift can throw off your carefully planned team composition, especially if you're aiming for that balanced 2-2-2 setup. Suddenly, you're scrambling to patch holes instead of focusing on executing your strategy. So, while banning Wolverine isn't always a must, it can definitely make your life easier and keep your team comp intact. Removing him from the battlefield means you don't have to worry about that constant backline threat or awkward lineup changes. If you want to stick to your game plan without surprises popping up, putting Wolverine on the ban list is a solid play, especially if you're still figuring out how to counter his aggressive style. Let's talk about Namor, a duelist who's definitely earned his spot on many players' ban lists in Marvel Rivals. He's a popular pick, especially at higher ranks, and it's easy to see why. Namor dishes out serious damage with his headshots, making him a constant threat that's hard to ignore. But what really makes him a pain to deal with is the fact that he hard counters a bunch of other popular heroes, which can completely mess with your game plan. When the enemy team switches to Namor, you might find yourself forced to bench heroes like Spider-Man or Black Panther, two fan favorites that many players rely on for mobility and crowd control. But it doesn't stop there. Namor's presence can also shut down other key heroes like Scarlet Witch, Iron Man, Storm, and even the Human Torch. If your team composition depends on flyers or high mobility backline duelists, you're probably going to have a tough time, since Namor's auto-aim turrets make it tricky for them to survive or operate effectively. So banning Namor is usually a smart move if you want to keep your team's flow intact and avoid those awkward hero switches. Taking him off the battlefield means you don't have to worry about him wrecking your favorite heroes or forcing you into less than ideal team setups. If you want to play your way and keep the upper hand in competitive matches, putting Namor on the ban list is a solid way to go. Alright, let's chat. Let's chat about Groot, the mighty vanguard who isn't exactly the most overpowering hero in Marvel Rivals but still deserves some respect when it comes to banning. Groot's main strength lies in his ability to throw up walls and control crowds, which can be surprisingly frustrating to deal with during matches. Those walls can really disrupt your team's movement and positioning, especially for duelists who rely on mobility, like Winter Soldier or Magic. One of the sneaky downsides of facing Groot is how his crowd control can force your teammates to rethink their hero choices. If the walls are making life difficult for your duelists, you might find yourself having to switch off some favorites just to navigate around his tricky setups. That kind of disruption can throw off your team's rhythm, especially if you were hoping to stick to a specific strategy or lineup. So, while Groot isn't necessarily an overpowered menace you have to ban every time, taking him off the board can be a smart, strategic move, especially if the other team picks him unexpectedly. It can shake up their game plan and save you from dealing with those annoying walls that slow everything down. If no one on your side is itching to play Groot, banning him early might just keep your matches smoother and your team composition intact. Let's talk about Storm, one of those duelists in Marvel Rivals who's had quite the rollercoaster ride in the meta. Sometimes she's totally overpowered, and other times she barely makes a dent. But the real reason to keep an eye on her, and often ban her, is that ultimate. If your team doesn't have strong strategist ultimates to counter hers, playing against Storm's ultimate can be a seriously frustrating experience. The thing with ultimates in Marvel Rivals is that many of them hit hard and fast, often wiping out squishy backline duelists and strategists in just 1 or 2 hits. Storm's ultimate fits right into that category. Honestly, using her ultimate well doesn't require crazy skill, but when timed right, it can completely swing a fight. That unpredictability and sheer damage potential make her ult one of the more dangerous tools in the game. So, banning Storm early in the match is a smart move if you want your strategists and duelists to focus on offense instead of constantly holding back to counter her ult. Removing that threat lets your team play more freely and confidently, knowing they won't get blindsided by a sudden, devastating Storm. Let's dive into why Hela is such a big deal when it comes to banning in Marvel Rivals. She's a duelist known primarily for her deadly headshot damage, and unless you have a teammate who's a total Hawkeye master, Hela usually takes the crown as the top headshot hero. Even when she's been nerfed here and there in the right hands, her precision shots can absolutely dismantle opponents before they even see it coming. What makes Hela especially tricky is how she forces your team to rethink their entire lineup. Take one of the strongest team combos in the game, Iron Man, Hulk, and Doctor Strange's Gamma Charge. If the enemy brings Hela into the mix, chances are your Iron Man is going to have to step aside. That's a big disruption, and it doesn't stop there. Most flying heroes on your team will likely need to counter swap too, which can throw your whole strategy off balance and leave you scrambling. And let's not forget her ultimate, which is a real pain to play against. It adds another layer of pressure and makes dealing with Hela even more frustrating. So, banning Hela early is a smart move if you want to keep your favorite heroes in play and avoid all those annoying forced switches. Taking her out of the picture means your team can stick to their plan and avoid getting blindsided by those deadly headshots. Spider-Man is one of those duelists who can really turn the tide of a match with his aggressive backline flanking. When you're facing a skilled Spider-Man, your strategists and supports better be on high alert because he can swoop in, take them out in seconds, and vanish before you even realize what happened. If your team isn't ready to constantly peel for your backline, banning Spider-Man early is a solid way to keep things under control and protect your key players. That said, Spider-Man isn't completely unstoppable. One of his biggest counters is Namor, who can shut down his mobility and make his flanking attempts a lot riskier. So if your team decides not to ban Spider-Man and wants to save those bans for other tough heroes, just remember to have Namor ready to deal with him. Having that counter in your pocket can turn Spider-Man's aggression against him and give you a major advantage. In the end, banning Spider-Man is about making the game easier for your strategists and duelists to play their roles without constantly looking over their shoulders. But if banning isn't an option, picking them more as a counter is the next best thing. It's all about playing smart and staying one step ahead of those sneaky backline threats. Winter Soldier is definitely one of the top duelists in Marvel Rivals, and for good reason. His kit is super versatile. He can dish out both medium and long-range attacks, making him a threat no matter where he is on the battlefield. On top of that, he's great at grounding those pesky flying heroes and can use his hook to mess with vanguards, pulling them out of position and causing all sorts of chaos. Because of this, banning Winter Soldier is almost always a smart play, especially when you're facing high-level competition. One of the biggest reasons Winter Soldier is so feared is his ultimate. Depending on your team's makeup, his ultimate can completely wipe out your squad if you're not prepared. It's fast, it's powerful, and it's brutal. Without the right countermeasures, you might find yourself staring at a game-ending moment before you even have time to react. Speaking of counters, having a Groot on your team who can throw up walls to block Winter Soldier's ultimate can make all the difference. Groot's crowd control can buy your team enough time to survive that burst damage and turn the tide. But if you don't have that luxury, banning Winter Soldier outright removes that massive threat and lets your team focus on executing their strategy without fearing a sudden wipeout. Let's talk about Cloak and Dagger, a strategist who's been making waves in Marvel Rivals for good reason. They're not your average support, they can heal like a champ and at times even play almost like a duelist, jumping into the action when needed. Their versatility makes them a huge threat on the battlefield, especially when they use their ultimate. It's one of those abilities that can swing fights hard, whether you're on the receiving end or the one pulling it off. Just like Luna Snow, banning Cloak and Dagger means removing a powerful support ultimate from the match. Their ultimate isn't just about healing, it also deals damage and can be used aggressively to disrupt the enemy team's plans. Having to face multiple strong support ultimates in one game can be overwhelming, so taking Cloak and Dagger out early makes it easier for your team to play without constantly worrying about those clutch moments. At the end of the day, banning Cloak and Dagger isn't just about one hero, it's about simplifying the battlefield and reducing those crazy ultimates that can turn the tide in an instant. If you want to avoid the chaos of 3 hard counter support ultimates stacked against you, putting Cloak and Dagger on the ban list is a smart move that gives your team more control over the game. Let's break down why banning the Invisible Woman is a smart move in Marvel Rivals, especially if you want to reduce the number of powerful support ultimates on the battlefield. Just like Cloak and Dagger and Luna Snow, taking her out early means one less support ultimate to worry about during intense moments. Her ultimate, combined with her invisibility, passive, and psionic abilities, makes her a tricky opponent who can really mess with your backline duelists. If your team's game plan relies on aggressive dive duelists like Psylocke, Black Panther, or Iron Fist, the Invisible Woman can be a major thorn in your side. Her invisibility makes it hard to track her movements, and her abilities counter those fast, high-mobility heroes effectively. Facing her means you'll have to play more cautiously, which can throw off your momentum and allow the enemy to control the pace. So, convincing your team to ban the Invisible Woman, especially alongside Cloak and Dagger or Luna Snow, really cuts down on the enemy's support ultimate options. It limits their ability to counter your aggressive plays and gives your team more freedom to execute your strategies without constantly worrying about sudden ultimates popping up out of nowhere. It's a solid strategy to keep the battlefield in your favor. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.